This is Ian Lamont. I'm the founder of the Lean Media book, blog, and video channel. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about a startup experience that I had earlier in my career. Basically, I was working part-time at a biotech company, and I wanted to share some of the interesting discoveries about the way that this company got started, which really is quite remarkable. This information I'm going to be talking about, this is actually public knowledge. The company used it in its own promotional materials, but I learned about it when I was working there on a part-time basis, and I think it's worth understanding because it shows how it's possible to run a capital-intensive company without raising money at the beginning. This is one alternative revenue model, which is what I like to talk about when I talk about startups. So first of all, this is a stock photo on the right side that you see here showing some scientists working on developing a new drug or something like that. And one thing you need to understand about biotech startups, pharmaceutical developers, is that it's a very capital intensive process to do this. It requires many years to successfully bring a drug candidate to market through very highly regulated systems of testing, and basically weeding out drugs that aren't working or candidates that aren't working. But there's a ton of R&D that goes into it. Lots of people, very highly trained people, have to be hired. Lots of specialty equipment, and even the spaces where these drugs are developed and the science takes place, there are special types of facilities that are expensive to develop with special safety equipment and whatnot. So you need a lot of money to do this. This is not like a typical DTC startup or even a software startup. This is really hard science, expensive science. So there was a company in the Boston area in the mid-2000s called Arcuel, and at this particular time in the mid 2000s, it was about to lay off its entire research group, which is I think 20 something people, which is pretty horrible. But they just did not have they'd run out of runway and they had to do something. So the chief scientist came up with an idea and said, "Let me spin off the group into a new startup called Boston Biomedical Incorporated." The chief scientist, his name is Chang Li. And he said, "I'll take this problem off of your hand. Just let me form this separate type of startup, and also give me a contract to do your research. We'll do your research for $5 million." So this was a really brilliant move because that gave BBI a 3-year runway to not only take care of Arcuel's research, but also to start their own research. And what Chang and Li and his team began to do was to develop some really groundbreaking research, including cancer stem cells. They did have to get a Series A round later on for $5.8 million, but just 3 years after that, they were able to license some of their science to a Japanese pharmaceutical company called Dainippon Sumitomo Pharmaceutical. And then later on, they were acquired for up to $2.6 billion, depending on various milestones. I think this is a fantastic example of a capital-intensive industry using an alternative revenue source. Rather than raising money from angels or Series A, B, C, D, E, F, they started out with a contract, a very valuable contract that gave them 3 years of runway, let them save all these people's jobs instead of being laid off, and set the stage for some really fantastic science, and in the end, a successful exit for the founders.